Most people think they're lost. They think they're behind. They look around and feel like everyone else is racing ahead, winning, building, thriving, while they're standing still, stuck in some fog of confusion, unsure what step to take next. But let me tell you something that will shake you to your core. You're not lost. You're just distracted. Distracted by the noise, the opinions, the scrolling, the comparison trap, the lies your mind tells you when you're exhausted, uncentered, and disconnected from your own truth. There's a version of you that's powerful beyond belief, but you can't access that version while your focus is scattered in 100 directions. You can't hear your own voice when everyone else's voices are louder. This isn't about finding some external GPS to guide your life. It's about shifting the signal inward. It's about removing the clutter, eliminating the unnecessary, and dialing back into your core. Because everything you're searching for already exists within you. The moment you stop looking outward for validation and start focusing inward for clarity, everything changes, your energy shifts, your purpose sharpens, you stop chasing and start attracting, you stop reacting and start creating. Let's get one thing straight. Distraction is not harmless. It's not just a little inconvenience in your day. It's the silent killer of your clarity, your focus, your momentum, your destiny. Distraction doesn't just pull your attention. It drains your energy, it diffuses your purpose, and it keeps you stuck in patterns you were born to outgrow. Most people walk around thinking they lack motivation or they're not disciplined enough. That's not the real problem. The real issue is they've given their focus away so many times that they've forgotten what it feels like to be fully present, fully engaged, fully aligned with the mission that's burning inside them. We live in a world that profits off your distraction. Every ding on your phone, every scroll on social media, every headline designed to trigger outrage or fear, it's all engineered to hijack your nervous system. And if you don't take control of your focus, someone else will. That's the truth. Because the moment you give up your focus, you give up your fire, you give up your direction, you give up your ability to cut through the noise and say, "This is who I am. This is what I'm building, and nothing gets in the way of that." You want to know how to build an unstoppable life. You start by becoming ruthless with what gets your attention. You start treating your focus like it's your most valuable asset, because it is. Every time you allow distraction to creep in, you leak power. Every time you say yes to things that don't align, you dilute the intensity that should be fueling your purpose. You can't dominate your goals with a distracted mind. You can't create a masterpiece with fractured attention. You can't build a legacy if you're constantly reacting to every external stimulus that comes your way. Most people wait for inspiration to strike. They hope that one day they'll wake up and suddenly feel laser. Focused, deeply driven, and clear. That's not how it works. Focus is a decision. Clarity is a discipline. You build it moment by moment, choice by choice, boundary by boundary. It starts the second you decide to stop giving your time and energy to things that don't move you forward. It starts when you take full ownership of your environment, your habits, and the standards you hold yourself to. You weren't born to be average. You weren't designed to live a distracted life. There's a warrior inside you that's waiting to be unleashed. But you've got to fight for that level of clarity. You've got to train your mind to stay locked in on what actually matters, even when the world is throwing chaos at you from every direction. That means turning off the noise. That means deleting the apps, cutting off the energy vampires, walking away from the drama, and choosing presence over pressure, purpose over popularity, progress over perfection. Every time you say no to distraction, you say yes to your future. Every time you center yourself in stillness, you reconnect with the clarity that's been buried under layers of noise, and that's where your power lives, in that stillness, in that laser focus, in that refusal to be pulled off course by things that don't deserve a fraction of your energy. This is how you reclaim your direction. This is how you tap into the part of you that's relentless, focused, unstoppable. The part that doesn't flinch in the face of adversity. The part that doesn't get knocked off track by opinions, setbacks, or surface-level nonsense. You keep thinking you're off track, like you missed your chance, like you've fallen behind some invisible timeline the world convinced you is real. But let me tell you something powerful. You're not lost. You're not broken. You're not late. You're distracted. And that distraction has distorted your ability to see the truth of who you really are and what you're capable of. See, the moment you start believing the lie that you're lost, you give away your personal power. You shrink, you start doubting your path, but the truth is, your path has always been there. It's just been buried under layers of noise, other people's expectations, constant comparison, and all the mental clutter you've absorbed from the outside world. You don't need to be fixed. You don't need to be found. You need to return to you. Return to that core of certainty deep inside that knows what you value, what you desire, what drives you. But that return doesn't happen when your mind is scattered across 100 things that don't matter. You can't access that clarity when your attention is divided, when you're saying yes to everything except the call of your own soul. That's why distraction is so dangerous. It doesn't just steal your time. It steals your identity. It convinces you to look outward for validation, for permission, for direction, when everything you need has been inside you the entire time. We've been conditioned to perform, to impress, to post, to prove. And in the process, we've forgotten how to simply be with ourselves, fully present, fully aware, fully grounded. You want to know why you feel anxious, unsettled, unsure. It's not because you're lost. It's because you've forgotten how to be still. How to listen to your own voice instead of the noise. The voice that doesn't shout, doesn't beg, doesn't compete. But it's always been there, waiting for you to turn down the volume on everything else and finally pay attention. You're not disconnected from your power. You've just been distracted from it. And the second you start clearing that mental space, the second you stop feeding your mind with other people's drama, doubts, and definitions of success, everything starts to shift. You start remembering who you are. You start noticing the patterns that have been holding you back. You start reclaiming your energy, your standards, your time, and that's the moment your life begins to move again, not because you finally figured it out, but because you finally stopped letting distraction dominate your headspace. You want progress, you want peace, you want purpose. It's not out there. It's not on your feed. It's not in someone else's highlight reel or timeline or version of what your life should look like. It's already within you, waiting to be accessed, but it requires a choice. A radical, deliberate, no-turning back kind of choice to break up with distraction and come home to yourself. That means detoxing your mind just like you detox your body. That means unfollowing what doesn't feed your focus. That means sitting with the discomfort of silence long enough to hear the truth rise up inside you. This isn't about productivity, hacks, or morning routines, or some perfect planner that's going to save your life. This is about mastery, self-mastery, and that only happens when you have the courage to stop numbing yourself with the next thing, the next fix, the next dopamine hit, and get honest about what you've been avoiding. Because distraction is often just a symptom of deeper avoidance, avoiding decisions you need to make, conversations you need to have, dreams you've been too afraid to pursue, truths you haven't been ready to admit. When you stop running, when you turn inward instead of outward, when you finally face what's real, you get access to a power that can't be shaken. You've been looking around, watching everybody else move, watching everybody else build, achieve, chase, and somewhere in your gut you feel that tension. That internal pull between knowing you're meant for more and being stuck in patterns that keep you small. But here's the truth that hits hard. Your future isn't waiting for you out there. It's waiting for you to decide who you're going to become today. The breakthrough isn't a moment you stumble into by chance. It's something you create by who you choose to be right now. You want to shift your life, shift your identity, not the surface level stuff, the deep core. The real version of you that's been buried under years of hesitation, fear, and conditioning that told you to play it safe. The person you want to become isn't found in your vision board or your wish list. That version is forged in the fire of repetition, discipline, and the relentless decision to live in alignment with your future, not your past. And that means making new agreements with yourself. Agreements that say, I will no longer shrink. I will no longer seek approval before I act. I will no longer hand over my power to opinions, to failures, to fear. You can't hold on to the identity that's tied to your limitations and expect your life to elevate. That's not transformation, that's stagnation dressed up in goals. See, most people want to upgrade their outcomes without upgrading their operating system. They want the reward without rewriting the code. But if your habits are still rooted in the identity of the old you, you'll sabotage every win because deep down you don't believe it belongs to you. That's why change feels hard, because you're still trying to live a new life with an outdated mindset, and the shift doesn't happen when you get results. It happens when you decide on a soul level that you're no longer available for the old story. That story where you settle, where you stay silent, where you say maybe later, and let fear drive the car. That story has expired. It served a season, not your destiny, and that shift. It's not about motivation. Motivation fades. It's about identity. Because when your identity shifts, your standards shift. And when your standards shift, your actions follow. You stop entertaining things that drain you. You stop surrounding yourself with people who reflect who you used to be. You stop negotiating with your greatness. You walk different. You think different. You become a match for the life you say you want, not just someone wishing for it on the sidelines. And yeah, it's uncomfortable. It's supposed to be. Growth always feels unfamiliar at first because it's breaking you out of the loop that kept you safe but small. The mistake most people make is thinking they need permission to evolve, that they have to explain their shift, that they owe an apology for growing. You don't owe anyone the version of you that made them comfortable. You owe yourself the truth about what you're capable of, the truth about the impact you were built to make, the truth about how you've been settling and calling it balance. And when you stop negotiating with that truth, when you start living from it, you become unstoppable. Not because you have it all figured out, but because you've decided to show up as your future self now, not someday. And what that requires is brutal clarity. You've got to know who you are without the noise, without the likes, without the mask. You've got to get real about what it's costing you to keep pretending, to keep delaying, to keep hiding behind busy. Your new identity doesn't emerge by accident. It's built through conscious repetition, through rituals that remind you of who you're becoming, through boundaries that protect that version of you like it's sacred, because it is. And when you start moving from that place, your energy shifts, your language shifts, your circle shifts, your results shift. Because everything external is a mirror of the internal decision you made to no longer tolerate a life that doesn't light you up. You've been addicted to movement that looks like progress but leads to burnout. You wake up and jump into the noise, scrolling, comparing, reacting, and call it productivity, but what you're really doing is avoiding the one thing that could actually change everything: stillness. Real focus isn't about doing more. It's about stripping away what doesn't matter. It's about stopping long enough to actually hear your own mind, feel your own heartbeat, and reconnect with what you're here to do. Because until you silence the chaos, you'll keep running in circles, confusing activity with achievement. The world has trained you to believe that if you're not grinding 24/7, you're falling behind. That if you stop moving, you'll get overtaken. But what if the real breakthrough isn't found in the hustle? What if clarity lives in the pause? What if everything you've been chasing is waiting for you to stop chasing and start aligning? See, you don't need more speed. You need more direction. And direction comes from depth, not noise. It comes from getting brutally honest about where your energy is leaking, who you're trying to impress, and why you've been afraid to sit in silence with yourself. Most people avoid silence because they're afraid of what they'll hear. That inner voice that's been whispering all along, "You're not fulfilled, this isn't your path, you're capable of more." That voice doesn't scream, it nudges. And in the chaos of your schedule, your phone, your notifications, that voice gets drowned out. But deep down you know the truth. You know the cost of distraction is not just time. It's purpose. It's self-respect. It's the power you hand over when you let the world tell you who you are instead of deciding it for yourself. Silencing the noise doesn't mean disappearing from life. It means re-entering life on your own terms. It means pulling back so you can realign, so you can ask the hard questions. Who am I becoming? What am I tolerating that's shrinking me? What's the cost of staying in this cycle of reaction? When you get quiet, you gain access to clarity, and clarity cuts through confusion like a blade. It gives you the power to say no, not because you're afraid to disappoint others, but because you're finally done disappointing yourself. You weren't designed to be available to everything. Your attention is your most valuable currency, and if you keep spending it on things that don't build you, don't grow you, don't fuel your mission, you'll wake up one day rich in regrets and broken purpose. You don't need another productivity hack. You need to reclaim your presence, because when you're fully present, your power returns. You stop reacting and start creating. You stop chasing validation and start living in alignment with your mission. And alignment is where momentum begins. Think about the most focused people you've ever seen. They don't look busy. They look calm. They move with certainty. They speak with intention. Why? Because they've removed the noise. They've eliminated the unnecessary. They've stopped letting distraction be their default. They've built an internal environment stronger than any external storm, and that's the edge. The inner world governs the outer world. When your inner world is disciplined, clear, and aligned, your outer results become inevitable. You're no longer chasing. You're attracting. You're no longer proving. You're embodying. You're no longer overwhelmed. You're unstoppable. But don't get it twisted. This isn't about meditation or positive thinking alone. This is war. A war against everything that's trying to hijack your focus, your peace, your power. It's the battle for your mind, your time, your soul. And the only way you win is to reclaim command of your attention. You've got to detox from the drama, from the noise, from the dopamine drip of distraction. You've got to retrain your nervous system to feel safe in stillness, to stop associating silence with laziness and start recognizing it as the training ground for your next evolution. You've got to stop waiting for the world to understand your silence. You've got to stop expecting others to validate your withdrawal from the noise. Growth doesn't always announce itself. It often looks like isolation. It feels like disconnection, but it's actually reconnection. To yourself, to your purpose, to your standards. When you start moving differently, not everyone's going to clap for you. When you disappear to level up, people will question you, doubt you, even resent you. But that's part of the process, because your evolution will trigger the stagnation of others. And the more you grow, the more you expose what they're not ready to face in themselves. This isn't about going off the grid or disappearing for show. It's about choosing to separate from distractions long enough to come back stronger. It's about getting away from the opinions, the noise, the guilt trips that try to keep you small. Because the truth is, the people who are most uncomfortable with your growth are usually the ones benefiting from your lack of it. And when you stop showing up for what drains you, stop attending every argument you're invited to, stop saying yes just to avoid conflict, you stop betraying yourself. That's where the shift begins. See, when you disappear to level up, you're not running away from people, you're returning to your standards. You're not isolating to avoid life. You're building the internal strength to re-enter life with intention. Most people won't get it. That's okay. They're not supposed to. Your transformation isn't a performance. You're not here to explain your every move. You're here to become so aligned with your mission that anything that doesn't serve it naturally falls away. Because when you're truly focused on growth, you don't have time to manage other people's perceptions. You're too busy executing, too busy healing, too busy evolving. That silence they interpret as distance. It's actually discipline. That calm energy they think means you're unbothered. It's because you've learned to respond, not react. You've trained your nervous system to stay centered when chaos knocks. You've made peace your priority, and make no mistake. Peace is not passive. Peace is power. It means you've stopped entertaining what doesn't grow you. It means you've learned to be unavailable to anything that doesn't elevate. And when you start moving like that, your energy shifts. You become magnetic. Not because you're trying to be seen, but because you've mastered being unseen and still unstoppable. The grind in silence is sacred. It's where the real work happens. No applause, no recognition. Just you versus your limits. And that version of you that's being built in the dark. That's the version the world isn't ready for. Because you're not just working on your goals, you're working on your identity. You're rewiring your mindset, your beliefs, your habits. You're letting go of what you used to tolerate, and that alone will confuse people. Because the version of you they were comfortable with, the one who played small, who overextended, who dimmed your light to make others feel secure. That version no longer exists. People will talk. Let them. People will doubt you. Let them. Your focus is not to convince. Your focus is to transform. Because once the results start speaking, the noise will fade. Once you walk in the room with unshakable energy, they'll feel the shift. Once you speak from alignment, they'll hear the truth, and they'll notice. Not when you post about it, not when you explain yourself. But when you show up different, when your presence carries weight, when your boundaries are firm, when your life reflects your standards. To evolve into your highest self, you must accept that not everyone will come with you. That's the price of growth. It's not personal, it's necessary. People are attached to who you were, not who you're becoming. They know the version of you that made compromises, that stayed small, that played safe. But when you decide to rewrite your story, when you start leveling up and raising your standards, you're going to disrupt their comfort. They'll try to pull you back, not always out of malice, soften out of fear, because your growth reflects their stagnation. Your courage confronts their complacency, and that discomfort shows up in how they respond to you. They distance themselves, criticize you, gossip about your change, but the truth is, you didn't lose them. You found you. You've got to become okay with being misunderstood. That's one of the most underrated superpowers in growth. The moment you stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you, you reclaim your energy, and that energy, that's fuel for transformation. Because the more you shrink yourself to stay digestible for others, the more you delay your destiny. You weren't made to fit into everyone's version of who you should be. You were made to break molds. You were made to lead, and leadership requires you to keep going, even when your circle gets smaller, even when the voices get louder, even when the support goes silent. You need to realize that not everyone who started with you is meant to finish with you. Some people are seasonal. Their role in your story was never meant to be permanent. They were there to show you something, to reflect, to challenge, to test. And once that role is complete, holding on becomes resistance. That resistance creates friction, and that friction keeps you stuck. The moment you let go of the attachment to what was, you open up space for what could be. That space is sacred. It's the environment where reinvention thrives. It's where clarity begins to form, where your next level starts to shape. But it can't exist if you're still clinging to dead weight. You have to understand the power of energetic alignment. Growth doesn't just change your habits. It shifts your frequency. It elevates your vibration. And when that happens, misaligned people will start falling off. It's not rejection, it's redirection. It's the universe removing what you no longer need, what no longer serves you. That pain of losing people, it's growth pain. It's the shedding of an old identity. And yes, it stings, but it's the sign that you're no longer available for the bare minimum. You're no longer operating from survival. You're stepping into creation. That requires solitude. That requires space. That requires the courage to say, I'm not who I was, and I'm okay if you can't accept who I'm becoming. Don't water yourself down for the comfort of those who fear evolution. Don't hold back your truth to maintain relationships built on your silence. Speak up, stand tall, and if your light blinds those used to your darkness, let it. You didn't come this far to dim down, you came to illuminate, and real ones won't be intimidated by your growth. They'll be inspired. They won't guilt-trip you for elevating. They'll cheer you on. So if they fall away, bless them, release them, and keep moving. Because nothing will sabotage your progress faster than surrounding yourself with energy that drains instead of fuels. You've got to be willing to walk alone for a while, not forever, but long enough to find your tribe, the people who get it. The ones who see you, support you, challenge you to be better. They exist. But you can't attract them until you become aligned with your true self. And you can't become that self while performing for approval or conforming to expectations. This is your season to get real, real with your priorities, real with your boundaries, real with your standards. Because when you get real, you get free, and in that freedom, everything changes. The discomfort you feel when people start falling off is temporary. But the peace that comes when you're finally surrounded by those who match your energy, that's priceless. That's the reward. That's what you're working for, not applause, not validation, but alignment. Deep, soul-level alignment, where you don't have to pretend, where you don't have to explain. Where your growth is not just accepted, it's expected. Where your presence is celebrated, not tolerated. That's the life that's waiting for you. But to get there, you have to be willing to release what's no longer meant for you. You have to walk through the fire of detachment to emerge on the other side as the version of you that was always waiting beneath the noise. The expectations, the fear,